call by the powers invested in us by us. Rise, Growling Dog.
Good evening, folks, and welcome to FMA Discussion. This is episode 464, and tonight is more theme related, and we have returning guest. You all know him, that infamous episode 355, transcending episode 355. Yes, leaves people stuck in traffic. You know? And today we have a new guest, Poi Dog Kalani, who I hear nothing but scary things about. So, but he seems like a nice guy. And I'm going to tell you, after watching that fight video, man, I have the outward best plan for Rene. So if I'm ever squared up against him, and I will be afraid, I'm telling you that right now. I'm a grown man. I'm not afraid to admit it. I will be afraid. But I tell you, I'm just going to keep saying 355, and I'll put him in a trance. I'll turn Growling Dog into Passive Dog. It's going to happen. It's my best plan. It's my only plan. But without further ado, guys, you know the theme episode. What is this stuff about technical sparring? We're going to find out. Here we go. Without further ado, Ground Dog and Poi Dog.
Is that Growling Dog? Oh my God! Am I actually talking to him?
I will put him in this. I will put him in a trance. 355.
Thank you, Mean Dean.
He'll just shut down. So welcome aboard, guys.
Thank you.
Kalani, first time, so I hope this will be a most pleasant experience for you. But
we'll see. We'll see how gentle Rene is.
It will be. But hey, great test run. People loved it. Got a lot of hits, a lot of likes, a lot of views. So why don't we first start by defining? I'll have you go first, Kalani. What, in your lens, is sparring? How would you define it?
For me, I guess sparring is testing yourself. That's the easiest way I look at it. Testing yourself. Can you really do what you think you can do? And testing yourself against worthy opponents. To me, that's sparring. Anything else is drilling, training. You know, it's one step down from a fight. There's still goodwill involved, but you're definitely seeing where your abilities lie. I guess that's sparring for me.
So but there's an interesting thing you mentioned, like with peers. In other words, so if you were sparring with students, that would not constitute, in your opinion, a sparring?
It may be sparring for them, but you know, if I've got that much experience over them, it wouldn't be sparring for me. It would certainly be training. You know, I'd be doing my best to bring them up, but I really don't think you can consider it sparring. And this is just my personal opinion, until you're stepping out against someone who's at a similar level in their journey, in their capabilities, in their willingness. I think there have been a few times where I've stepped out for fights where I could feel it on the other end that my opponent had something to work through. He wasn't swinging at me 100%, and then at that point it became, in my opinion, my responsibility to pull that out of them. But until it got to that point where they were giving me as much as they could, I didn't really think it was sparring.
Okay. And I'm going to get to Rene. I'm just going to make sure the comments are starting to fly in here. All right, we got Terry, Guru Terry from Stockton, Eric O'Brien, Brian Canada, Glenn. We got Kurt, Francisco, wherever that guy is. And we got, so Brian's got, okay. Okay, yeah, we're definitely going to get into that, Brian. Actually, that's one of my questions, so we'll get that. Okay, same question for you, Rene.
It's funny. For me, I kind of equated to a conversation I had with somebody who sent me a message once. And I had no idea who these people were or who this person was. And just like out of the blue, it wasn't hello. It wasn't, what are you training? Their first opening line was, "I want to fight you." And my response was, "Do you want to fight or do you want to spar?" And when they said, "Well, what's the difference?" I'm like, if we spar, we go out, you hit me, I hit you, we laugh about it and have a good time. But I don't know you, and you all of a sudden you say, "I want to fight you." My goal is to put you in the hospital. And it's just the way that conversation opened up is the reason I went that route. So for me, sparring is, and I said before, I don't allow my guys to spar with like soft sticks first. We fight with rattan first, and then we go to soft sticks so they respect the stick sort of thing. Sparring to me should be one step down from the real thing, where we are not trying to kill each other. We're trying to pull out attributes out of each other. And that's kind of where I'm at.
Okay. No, good answer for both of you. So when you guys hear the term, so this show was based on, Rene made a suggestion to me where he heard technical sparring, and that's kind of what triggered this episode. So Kalani, when you hear technical sparring, what comes to mind?
To be honest, I mean, I guess in the circles that I run in, I never really heard the term technical sparring. It was sparring or it was drilling. Those were really the two things. I guess based on a little bit of our conversation yesterday, what a lot of people seem to be calling technical sparring seems to me what I call drilling. You're trying to work specific attributes. It's not an all-in endeavor. You're not working to full capabilities. You're isolating one thing or the other, working your entries, working your control, whatever it may be, just doing hand sparring or something like that. To me, that's all drilling. Sparring is just, it's complete non-compliance on each other's parts. No ill will, but you're definitely trying to test each other.
Yeah, like push, right? Like I remember like the first few times I went to California, like 2008, and I got to meet up with some of the NoHo clan. Like their drills were what most people consider sparring, and their sparring was what most people consider fighting. It was just like, it was really pushing that person to get to that stage where they can, express their art, I guess, which is something Kalani said a long time ago, and I completely agree with. It's the same thing with me. Like when I hear people saying, "Well, we don't have to fight hard; we can just be technical," and I don't want to shit on people. Like I just want to be clear about this, like right off the bat.
Yeah, you do.
No, I really don't. No, seriously.
I don't want to put people down.
You do you. Like, and my opinion is nothing. It's just, it is what it is. But when I hear people saying, "Well, we do the same thing, but we do it on a technical level, and it doesn't have to be that hard," to me, it just means you don't want to go to the other level. And that's cool with me. I'm 100% cool with that. But just don't call it fighting, because that's where I have a problem with it. I just, I'm an angry Spaniard, and that stuff makes me crazy. It's just because you're not fighting. You're just drilling hard or sparring, but you're not fighting. And to sit there and say that as long as I'm being technical and I'm using the proper angles, I'm doing what you do, you're not.
No.
Okay.
So that's my rant. My first rant for the day. How you like that?
Yeah, that's fine. No, I'm sure. When you mentioned when you went to that group there in California, and you mentioned that most folks would perceive their drilling as sparring, what were they exactly doing as far as their drilling that most would think that?
Well, isolated drills. Like for me, the main thing was with Nick and Kalani's group. Like it was just the intensity was just off the charts. It wasn't like like you go to a class and they're doing some sparring. You're like, oh, that seems pretty crazy. Like if I sit on the sidelines and say, I don't think I want to do that, it means that they're taking it beyond what most people will consider sparring, right? And then what their sparring is just literally the only reason they're not fighting is because they're not kicking, throwing each other on the ground, or
Mhm.
kicking someone in the head or whatever. It's like I was like, this is fantastic, and Nick and Kalani for me were like they were really the people that brought me to my next level because I decided that I got to take these lessons and bring them back to my group and kind of elevate my guys to that because inevitably they would fight, right?
Right. At
And
some
I and
point,
I
it
and
would
I want to
be.
make sure that they're at least close to that level of or at least match it.
Okay, so Kalani, so the drills he's speaking of, like, just so just the folks that are listening, I guess what I want to achieve here is that they can see the absolute difference. So, can you, by hopefully, can you give some specific drills that Rene is referencing that most from the outside in, looking in, would think it's drilling, but actually,
The
you guys
spooning one was
were.
pretty intense.
Which what?
The spooning one, or like no.
No,
Oh,
that was
I'm not supposed to
that.
say that.
Hey, no. That was the after hours. That was special for you, Rene. You notice we plied you with a lot of booze before the spooning drill. Uh, no, I I think fortunately for me, or unfortunately for however it works out. The background I came from and the group I came from immediately prior to Dog Brothers was a very small group called Full Contact Hawaii. And we had most of us had trained under the same instructor. They had eventually seen the light after a couple years of me cajoling them about these crazy psychopaths, the Dog Brothers, in this tape, and they finally, converted at one point. But our idea of training in Full Contact Hawaii was just go out and fight. Like training was something we did on our own. Drilling was something we did on our own. We did it with our individual students. When we got together, it was all about the fight. And I was very happy to find that when I went to NoHo, it was a very similar mentality. So when we talk about isolating a drill at NoHo, if I may speak on behalf of the group, say we wanted to work entries like the flying roof or something like that. A lot of schools or a lot of groups, they simply work that. They work the entry, stop. I either achieved it or I didn't, reset. Now you can do it with incredible emotional intensity, vigorous physical intensity. But at NoHo, that wasn't where it ended. The drill continued. You had to make something good of the flying roof. It wasn't enough simply to achieve it. You had to find a position of dominance. So the spar or the drill would continue, until you establish something significant, something that would have mattered in a gathering had you been going, at 100%.
Awesome.
And I think it ended up. I think that was part of the reason why it took NoHo such a long time to really expand. I mean, NoHo's always been one of the bigger groups, but to find people willing to drill at that level, like Rene said, what a lot of people would consider a full-on spar. It's tough to hold on to people,
Hold on to folks
to convince them to come back. Exactly that. It does get better at some point. You're not getting hit quite as often.
I promise you. Okay, I'm just catching up on comments here, guys. Okay, we got David Parker from Stewart. Just watched 355 last night. Please, David, if you don't mind, give me your thoughts.
Hold on a second.
Is he talking about Nick Papadakis? Yes, he is. And
yeah, talking
also,
about Pappy.
Like, let me just say one thing. Like with NoHo, like my first time when I went to a gathering, I went by myself. I flew in, and like they just opened up their arms. It wasn't like this is our group. Who the hell are you? they just like said, "Come on in," and like that's the really cool thing I always loved about Dodd Brothers is like it was really inviting. Like it just like come on in, hang out with us, train, drink like Vikings, and fight the next day sort of thing. That's the one thing I thought was really cool. Beyond everything that we're talking about right now, just if you do get a chance, I always say go train with Kalani, go train with Nick. Like that group is like it's crazy. It's awesome.
Oh, no, that's good. Okay.
Well,
Ask
maybe not
about
Kalani.
moose climbing as a training methodology. Moose climbing. This is coming from Randall Gregory.
Ah, what's up, Randall? What's up, brother? You still
So
got those
at
ugly ass fight shorts you were wearing at that one gathering?
uh, so at our first gather, I think the first Canadian gathering where we went out and climbed. Like I may have started something where we decided to go out for a few drinks in the town that I was living in, and by the end of the night, we're climbing all of the statues in the.
I thought we weren't allowed to speak of the Order of the Moose.
Exactly. Well, I'm not talking about it. I'm just saying we may have. We may have.
Um, if I could interrupt real quickly, Glenn, I see your comment. Yeah, I was way bigger. I was about 270. So once I left LA, I lost about 90 pounds.
Jesus
Uh,
Christ.
yeah, dude, I was, well, you remember what I looked like, man. I was round. I was much rounder
You've
than
always
that.
been sexy to me, man.
And I'm not svelte by any means, but I was way rounder than back in the day. So, yeah, thanks for noticing. Always feels good.
So, which leads to Francisco. I have a question for Kalani. Why did you stop eating rice? Probably because you were 270?
Because I was 270, man.
Maybe
Absolutely. Hey, good local boy. I love my white rice, but it's not kind to me.
270. Holy shit.
Yeah, dude, I was.
What do you weigh now?
Right now, I'm at about 205.
We're the same weight.
Are we?
Yeah, I was like 235 when I was fighting, like at the last couple gatherings.
Yeah.
Wow.
You're getting all skinny. Thought it was supposed to go the other way when you get married, man.
I won't say anything.
So, all right. So, anything. So, you guys. Okay. One of the other terms that comes up: sparring isolations. Where like you're I don't know. You could be isolating the defensive.
Just hand shots, just knee attacks,
yeah,
just
or maybe
foot attack. Yeah.
Exactly. So that doesn't even float your guys' boat, right?
No,
I mean,
honestly, I love isolation drills. Like with my guys, sometimes I'll say one person right lead, the other person left, and they have to switch back and forth. Like I think those drills are great. Like for me, I always think of it like if someone were to break your hand or your arm, and you have to learn how to.
Your pinky.
I'm just
Come
saying,
on.
like those drills are fantastic, but to me, it's still a drill. Like
Yeah, call them a drill.
it's something that you can use in fighting or in sparring, and I switch hands quite often. And like there's like even some of the videos that I sent you before is like if I get hit on the right hand, I switch to my left, and I just keep going. It's just the way I like to think, right? But would I consider that sparring? No, I just consider it drilling. Like
Still
it's
good isolating drilling as opposed to isolation of sparring. Okay. David Parker, very interesting and entertaining. Love the Anasano story about the bag of apples. David Parker, watch. We got John Kleinman, much love, and Wolf from DBMA NYC. Okay.
nice.
So, all right. So, anything. So, basically, you guys pretty much summed it up as far as I go.
All right, great show, guys. I'll talk to you later.
That was we'll end right here at 20 minutes.
If you're feeling nostalgic, you can go check out 355.
Yeah, we'll just bring it up here. Okay, so Brian had the same question I had. So guys briefly already touched on it, but you guys can go deeper if you want. Sparring versus fight, the false security and another sub question, and that could be testing of self. But yeah, but let's first, sparring versus fight, Kalani.
I think Rene touched on it earlier, and I think he and I see fairly eye to eye. For me, a fight is not just an absence of goodwill, but there are bad intentions. You know, my goal in that is I want to hurt you. I want to hurt you to the point where you cannot continue, and I want to do it to you as quickly as possible. You know, the longer they're in the fight, the more chance they have to hurt you. My goal is, you know, to stop them, period. You know, but without any goodwill. It's not like I want to show them the holes in their game. I want to bury their head into the street. You know, I want to send them to the hospital. I mean, to me, that's a fight. And it's, you know, it's been thankfully decades since I've been in a fight, you know. But for me, that would be the difference. You know, if there's if there's no ill will, then it's a spar. It may be a really intense spar. But if it's a fight, it's, you know, I guess to me now, you know, now that I'm older as well, a fight is something where my only other choice is to submit to, you know, I don't know, the boogeyman bad guy, or potentially facing jail or prison time. That, to me, that's a fight. You know, everything else is a spar. If it's a mutual in any way, it's probably a spar. I'm not, you know, I'm not that early 20s, late teens kid who's getting into fights for ego's sake and things like that. I take it a little more seriously now, and for me, that would be the difference. There's active ill will in a fight.
Rene?
It's funny, like when I think about a friend of mine that I was speaking to not so long ago, who is he's like an SA guy here in Canada, and he said, you know, it's funny, like it just seems as people get older, they are missing some crucibles in their life where they want to, you know, have something that they can go back on. It's like, you know, I know some people who are like, oh, I could have been a Navy SEAL, like I could have been the contender, and I think it's the same thing with martial artists in some ways, where they're like, I could have been this badass, but I'm not. But if I do this, it makes me feel like I am. And that's cool. You know, that makes you feel whatever you want to feel, but there's a reality to it. You know, it's like I could have just stayed with my fighting group that, you know, that we used to get together like after I met Philip and stuff, and pretend that I was doing Dawn Brothers stuff. But it wasn't until I actually joined the Dawn Brothers that I knew, like, this is the real deal, right? And that transfers into so many different things, like, you know, whether it's martial arts, like, or even like shooting arts. You know, like I meet so many guys who are like doing like the IPSC shooting, and I'm not shitting on any of those people, but just because you can shoot a lot of targets and everything else does not qualify you as some sort of, you know, operator. You know, like,
I'll shit on those guys. I mean,
no, we're talking to Kalani, who's like a legit dude, right? Like I've gone to ranges where, you know, I've told the story a million times, right? Told like IPSC shooters to go fuck themselves because they don't like the way my setup is or whatever.
That one guy, who's that one guy? That one guy you were talking about.
So the same operator guy I was talking about told me to shoot up pie plates.
Yeah.
And he said, pull your pistol out, shoot 10 rounds into a pie plate, and your goal is to just put them in the pie plate. Don't worry about grouping or anything else. And I had this like dude who's like an IPSC shooter comes up to me. He's like, well, I noticed that the way you're holding your pistol, and he's just like, he's going on and on. And I was like, what do you do for a living? He's like, well, I'm a computer programmer. I'm like, just go fuck yourself. Like, just like, you know, I'm dealing with someone who's actually been in combat, who's been deployed 8 times compared to you, who, you know, does coding. And I'm not saying they're a bad shooter, and they're probably a better shooter than I am, but I wanted to get the experience from what this guy was talking to me about, right?
So he was awarded a go F yourself.
Yeah, well, yeah, probably more, but you know, I try to keep it family friendly.
This, ladies and gentlemen, this is Rene's family friendly.
But to me, it's the same thing with martial arts. It's like some people do something, and all of a sudden they think, I'm the man, right? But they've never tested that, or it's just some regurgitated bullshit that their instructor taught them. Like, and I was a victim of that for
I think we all were at one point,
like,
right?
At one point,
for
absolutely.
decades. You know, like
Yeah.
That's part of the journey, right? You
I
go
went through
it
this,
and-
like, what does that mean? Like, what am I doing? And
You're dancing, man. You're dancing.
oh, it's like, I remember one instructor telling me, like, sacrifice your arm for a knife shot so you can get back in. Like, that's insanity. It's pure insanity.
Yeah, you won't be hearing that from Blade Tech.
Yeah. So, sorry, that was rant number 2, but definitely, again, I don't want to shit on people who do like different martial arts or spar a certain way. Have at it. Like, just go for it. I'm cool with it. Just don't call it that you're fighting, because it upsets
Call it what it is. Yeah.
and something that Kalani said about, like fighting and everything else. Like, I remember I had a friend of mine, an Eastern European friend of mine, that I was walking down the street with, and there's like 4 guys walking towards me, and he grabbed a rock, and he was ready to he was ready to roll, and I was like, that's his reality, right? Like, he wasn't ready to do the whatever.
Yep.
He was ready to start cracking skulls and go to town. And I was like, that's real.
I mean, it makes me think of one of my personal favorite stories. You witnessed, there was a club back in Honolulu back in the day, and this is right at the time when Grapplers Unlimited was just kind of first coming on the scene. It was the Inoue brothers, Egan and Insen.
Oh yeah, Burton's guys there.
Yeah. And there were, it was new, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu was still, the UFC had just come out, so this was early 90s-ish. And they were going around. It was well known that they were going into clubs, these guys from Grapplers Unlimited, and I'm not saying everybody at Grapplers Unlimited was like this, but there were certainly a few fighters. They would go in, they'd start fights, and then, they'd crush dudes, because everybody's expecting this kind of stand up, toe to toe, and they double leg take them to the ground, and they just, smash them. Well, these 2 guys were picking a fight, and the guy they were picking a fight with didn't realize there were supposed to be rules. So as the first guy came in, he smashed a beer bottle over his head and just opened up, a gash from, near the back of his ear across his face. Second dude started to come in, and he hit that dude with a bar stool and then was out the door before the bouncers even knew what the hell was going on. Meanwhile, I'm laughing, choking down a beer, laughing my ass off because, there is a difference.
Yeah.
And this is not to disrespect MMA. There are monsters in MMA who would smash me without a thought, but it's easy for everyone to get locked into this mindset. Traditional martial artists, out of the MMA set nowadays, this mentality that, I know everything there is about fight. Now, man, you don't understand that when a 2x4 comes into the fight, it's a completely different issue.
Yeah, or a beer bottle. Right?
Yeah, beer, absolutely. Environmental weapons of opportunity.
Yeah.
Honestly, one of my favorite like broken bottle disarms happened at a bar where I was working, where like we were kicking people out like 1:30 in the morning. It's like, it's time for you to start moving out. And this dude like smashed a bottle, and he's like, I'm not leaving. And I was like, hey man, don't worry about it. And I grabbed the bar stool and I smashed him with it. And I just told the guys to carry him out. I'm like, disarmed.
That's a highly effective disarm, man. Absolutely. Absolutely.
I'm not fucking around with that,
So not defanging the snake, defanging the body.
And I think, Hollywood has something to do with it. But I think a lot of instructors have a lot to do this as well, because
I think that's fair. Yeah.
they're just regurgitating shit that was said to them.
Yeah, false sense too.
Or, hey, listen, like, I know you got to make money, but at least be honest with the people. Say, hey, I think this may work.
Especially in the knife world, you see it all the time, which is my man. Like them saying, and it just, now lives are at stake, ethically and morally. It's like you have the integrity, self honesty to students. It's just
Dean, I think I may have mentioned this in 355.
Wait, there were a lot of things mentioned in 355. So could you just maybe just clarify?
So one of my pals got into an altercation at a bar with somebody, which is weird because most of my friends don't drink, and
I almost,
You hanging out with a new crowd? What?
it's crazy. Great, dude.
you almost called me with that. When
It's
I
a
was
Heineken Zero. but but my pal grabbed onto this guy to take him outside, and the guy grabbed a pen, a pocket pen, and stabbed him 4 times with it. It almost killed him.
with a pen.
And yeah, and that was like, you know, like people don't realize when you meet people who are exceptionally violent or don't give a shit about anything, your training better be on point.
So this is my son. He wants to be a dog brother. So he's going to beat the crap out of cancers.
Nice.
All right, good deal.
Defender dog. He likes Matt Berry. So that's Growling dog, and that's boy dog.
Outstanding. Hope to see you at a gathering one of these days.
If you choke your dad out right now, I'll give you 50 points.
Don't even, man. I'm serious. Don't even, man. Don't even.
Have you seen the Fang choke video yet? Perfect opportunity to practice it.
I'm telling you right now.
Just grab a sword.
You see this African war club, man? I'm telling you.
That is a dad answer right there, man. Outstanding.
Oh my God, that's like the Italian spoon.
Here, just close. Do it. Yeah, just close the door. Thank you. Yeah, he's got like big ambitions. So he
Good.
15. He's getting moved to adult class in BJJ because of his size and all that. And then he'll probably get his blue belt in a year once he goes to transition to adult. And then he wants to get in with the dog brothers. Yeah.
Nice.
Outstanding.
So soon be the
So you
man in
got to
the
beat him
house.
to it then.
What's that?
Yeah, you got to beat him to it.
Yeah. I'm going on 59, and yeah, I don't got much left in the gas tank.
Buddy, I haven't had anything left in the gas tank for the last 20 years. You're good.
I'm good. Thank you.
Now, man, what's that Toby Keith song? I may not be as good as I once was, but I'm as good once as I ever was.
Yeah, it's just. But hey, here's an interesting thing though. Listen to you guys talk. I don't think the community really understands. I'm not even saying, obviously, I understand, to be quite honest. But what I mean by that is, I don't think the folks, generally speaking, understand between the fight and like the sparring. Because most people think sparring and they think about fighting outside. You know what I mean? You get in a street fight, but they don't look at fighting. You think I'm wrong in that? But I don't think, that, generally speaking, the community as a whole, I don't know if they get it. I don't know. I could be.
Well,
I don't know.
I'll say this. Even since last night, I got a little bit of hate mail over our conversation, which was good. I really enjoyed it. But
A daily occurrence for it.
yeah, well, but thank you for giving us an avenue to talk about this because most people will just say
Absolutely.
whatever, but there's a reality that you have to understand that there's people out there who will punch you out. And, actually, I think it was Brian Canada said he mentioned something today in a post where sticks may break on someone, but it won't stop them. There are people out there who are not going to stop when you hit them with a stick. And that's one thing that I trained with, and like even the video that I sent you the other day where, like my stick was taken away and I grabbed their stick and started hitting them with it or just started hitting them as well. Like, that's a fight to me. That's when like the person who you're fighting with just doesn't give a shit. Like they're out to stop you. And I think a lot of the stuff today is being taught as it's a game. And that's what really, really bothers me. It's a game that, it's back and forth. and everybody's smiling. I guarantee you, every time I fought somebody, I never smiled. When I fought Kalani in that video that we sent you last night, I was not smiling.
But see, that's my point, though. I don't think the community gets it. That's what I mean. Like, I think they're so indoctrinated with the clubhouse kind of thing, and this is their perception. Their perception. Oh yeah, we sparred hard tonight, and maybe it was just hand engagement. You know what I mean? But maybe it just was maybe a little rough on the hand.
Or it was like zombie sparring. It's like, here you go, here's number one.
Yeah.
And then they do some crazy thing to you, and everybody's clapping and going, wow, that was amazing.
But I don't think the community as a whole, though. I don't think they see the degree of what you guys do, or the separation, what you guys are describing versus sparring versus fight.
But even if we take away what we do,
Yeah.
I don't think people get it. I think there's been, like, we're in the disco stage of martial arts.
I think you're right, but I think it's even further perpetuated in your guys' wheelhouse, though. You know what I mean? What do you think, Kalani? What do you think?
I'm sorry. Repeat that. What about I'm sorry. Repeat that one more time.
What I'm overall saying is, I don't think the overall community, generally speaking, get the difference within what you guys do between fight and sparring. I really don't. And I think that's because if you're in a kind of martial arts school, your lens on sparring, man, could be like, padded stick and we had gear on. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And, like that. And you can't say like they're wrong because they're creatures of habit, or this is what's been handed to them. And what they know, they don't know what they don't know. Right.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah.
And so I don't think, generally speaking, I don't think they see the magnitude of what you guys do and the difference between sparring and fight. Now throw the ill will in there.
Yeah.
And now you got it told. Is that?
I think that's a function of just kind of the way society has gone in a general trend over the past couple decades. I mean, we're all of the age, where I'm speaking for myself. I'm pretty sure I'm speaking for Rene. I assume I'm probably speaking for you, Dean. We got into fights. I mean,
we got hit by our parents, man, when we did.
Yeah. I mean, as well. Hell, I mean, I got, I would get into fights in, elementary school, middle school, high school, I mean, and it was just part of what was done, and fights would start over the stupidest thing, like, Superman's the best, Batman could kick his ass. And then, and that's, you're dusting it up.
Bus, right?
And I don't think a lot of people nowadays have that reference, that experience to pull from. For example, when I teach, both my women's self-defense and my just regular self-defense classes, I start off every class or every seminar with, who here's been punched for real? And I rarely get more than maybe one or two people in any seminar I've ever taught that raises their hand. That's in some respects, that's a good thing. But I think people don't have a baseline to understand what a fight is. I mean, I remember very distinctly being just whipped on by 3 kids.
Culturally,
I was probably 14 or 15. I mean, they were teeing me up. But at the end of it, it was also, thankfully, at the end of it was like, there was a begrudging respect, that they showed me, like, hey, you were willing to mix it up. And there were a couple other kids who didn't want to get into it, and there was at the very least that. But I distinctly remember in the middle of it, thinking like, oh, Christ, my mom's going to come and have to get me from the hospital. Like,
you're gonna get another beating.
Yeah, and where you're unsure of how far they're going to go, if you are unsure if they will stop before you are critically injured, that's a fight.
Yeah. I don't think I think you're right. I don't think
we're dealing with.
You know what I mean? Like, look at like you mentioned, the last couple of decades. I mean, there's been a huge cultural shift.
Yeah.
I mean, look at these modern millennials. It's like, I can guarantee you that none of them are mixing it up anytime soon. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, and it's because it's been pushed on them. I mean, I remember hearing stories in school. Obviously we were all out of school, but when the first kind of I heard the first whisperings of like anybody who gets into a fight, it doesn't matter if you've been bullied the entire semester
Mm.
and you decide to fight back against your bully one day, well, you both get suspended. It's ridiculous, but there's been this push at a
No, I know.
societal level to
It's going
get
like
rid of that
Here to now, like over here. This is why
all the way over. Yeah,
this is why he didn't have a choice. Like,
yeah,
you're gonna do martial arts.
absolutely.
You're gonna do
You know,
martial
my
arts.
kids don't have a choice. I'm sure Renee's kids don't have a choice.
Yeah, it's like I don't care what you do, but you're gonna do martial arts. If you want to do more than one, great, but you're gonna do martial arts for a magnitude of reasons. And he happened to just fall in love with it. But why? Because we need like men. We need like
Yeah.
Man, you know, like honestly, like I think tolerance now is a lot different than when I was growing up. Like, you know,
Oh,
I
my
think I
God.
mentioned this before. Like, I grew up in Europe, and wherever I went, whether it was in South America, even when I came to Canada, there's always some sort of conflict with me. There's always some sort of fighting involved. And to be honest with you, it actually became normal to me. Like it wasn't.
But is that the culture? Is that, you know, because you're kind of an asshole? I mean, really.
I wasn't.
You know, I'll say this. When I was growing up in Switzerland, I got bullied by a bunch of kids, right? And I came home and I got beaten up and I was crying, you know, the whole thing. And my dad opens the door and he sees me there all beaten up and everything else. And he says, well, tell you what, you have a choice. Go back out there, find those guys and take them out, or do this or feel like this for the rest of your life. And he just left the door open and walked away with his glass of wine, right? And I went back out and I got the shit kicked out of me. But they never bothered me again.
Yep.
Yeah.
And fortunately or unfortunately created a mentality in me. So wherever I went, like if there was a conflict, I was never like, oh my God, they want to hurt me. It was like, okay, they want to hurt me. And I definitely brought that into, you know, going back into the topic of our martial arts. That's the mentality that I want to bring to the people that I teach. It's like, nobody cares. It's up to you to really protect yourself.
Yeah, you're a first responder, right?
And you have to have the reality of what life is really like, because no one out there is going to stop. You know, like listen, when, like, as you guys know, I got into a couple of car accidents in the last week. People don't stop to make sure you're okay. They just want to see carnage, right? So it's up to you to take care of yourself. And it comes, and to me, it's the same thing with martial arts. There has to be a reality to it. And, you know, when I see people doing like zombie drills where it's like they shoot an angle one and the guy does a whole bunch of fancy stuff with a bunch of abanicos and knees and pulls your pants down, like it just, that's not real. It's just not real. Like the reality of life is it's exceptionally violent. And if you're not prepared for that, you're just not going to win no matter what your training is.
The counter argument to that would be, well, I guess if they're honest, no, we're just doing the art. We know this stuff won't work in reality. Then it doesn't bother me because they're being honest.
Cool.
Yeah,
but I would say that.
Yeah.
Tell your students
absolutely.
that.
I love training the art for the art's sake. I mean, you know, have a whole segment off of, a roof entry to Abanico to, reverse hammerlock disarm. It's beautiful. It's fun. It's a kick to do, but be honest with what you're doing. It's choreography.
Yeah.
It's choreography, but it's fun.
You might get something out of that. Absolutely. You know, it was actually, I think, Rich yesterday asked me a question like, did I fight first and then do the traditional art?
Oh, Rich Parsons? Probably?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I did the traditional art first. Then I started fighting, and then I went back to the traditional art to see if I could understand it better now that I have a combative background.
That's interesting.
And,
all right.
Excuse me, I actually learned so much more after I fought.
Okay.
Because I could see, okay, maybe this is what they actually meant.
Yeah, maybe got lost in translation, right?
You know, like Abanicos and stuff. I was like, what the fuck is that all about? And then once I started fighting, I understood, Abanicos work as long as all your body weight drops behind them, or, like you use them as you're walking away as a distraction and stuff like that. I was like, man, this stuff's amazing. And then I could use that and go back into the combative side and say, hey, this is what I think they actually meant, instead of
Yep.
someone telling me, 15 Abanicos will
Yeah,
stop.
and
Well, I think that touches on a point that you guys have brought up earlier, is a lot of these instructors out there haven't truly pressure tested their material,
no, I think that
especially
a good
against
majority.
someone who's not in their system.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right.
Because if you look at the Manongs, right, the kind of the first generation OG, escrimadores, and I grew up in Hawaii, so um, that had been part of the cultural history. This is one thing that I give props to Mark Denny for, among many other things. But he once said, the art was created by men who had survived fights and were looking for a way to train safely. It wasn't designed to create warriors.
Interesting.
It was, it came from men who had survived a fight or two, and now they wanted to continue to practice. They wanted to do it in a safe manner. And unless you keep the combative pressure there, it's going to be lost in translation. This is why we did this. That like Rene was just talking about, a rolling abanico with a body weight drop behind it. You catch somebody on the wrist, that's a significant shot.
Yeah.
But unless you've had to do it, because otherwise this guy's going to take your head off, you don't understand how to put that intensity into that movement. If you're concerned more with not hurting your training partner, you're never going to be able to train at that same intensity that's required of an actual situation.
That's all. No. That's both great points by both of you. Here, some questions came in that I've had to be better attentive to this. Okay, because you got that's what happens when the conversation goes so well. I lose sight of this. Okay, so this is from Kurt. If combat the highest form of competency and value for martial arts, if so, why or why not?
This is the way I look at it. This is my answer, and this may be kind of a skirting the issue. If you look at the founding of every martial art, it was because someone didn't want to die or someone didn't want to get their ass kicked. So yes, combat was at the root of it. But because of where we are now, is it the be all end all? I don't necessarily think so. I mean, Dan, Guru Dan, phenomenally in his Filipino martial arts book, right? He talks about it's just the tip of the iceberg, right? You learn how to defend yourself. You learn self-confidence. You learn all these other things that come from it. But for me, I don't know if it's the only value, but I think you have to be honest with yourself. If you're training the art because you want to look super cool, or because you want to develop self-confidence, or you want to develop discipline or coordination, there's nothing wrong with that. You want to be healthy, you want to learn. Part of my entry into the Filipino martial arts was to explore my cultural history. Being half Filipino, I'd always heard that we had these mystical martial arts that you could just murder people with, and I wanted to investigate that. But I think for me, yeah, combat or combat application was always my goal out of it. I love the pretty stuff. I think it's awesome. But my journey, and it could be because my background, I got my ass kicked a lot, and I didn't like it. I didn't like being on the receiving end of ass whippings all the time. I wanted to not be beat up or not worry about being sent to the hospital. So for me, that was always the end goal.
I didn't want to receive anymore. I wanted to deliver.
I got tired of being on that end of the equation. That was, as I suspect for many of us, that was the original impetus behind it.
Yeah, right.
Sorry, rather rambling answer.
No, that was good. No, Rene, you want to take a crack at
it? I think it's kind of a loaded question for me, because I think when people are in war and they want to train their warriors, that they can't do it in the same scenario. You can't have each other, you can't hack each other up. But I think I kind of think of it as like in Krabi Krabong or in Kali and other arts that I've trained. You know, when you have people who are training warriors, and then in times of peace, they want to keep making a living. They start making a lot of shit up, and
Yeah, yeah,
and then
absolutely.
it dilutes the message of self preservation to more of a game. And yes, you can learn through a game, but at the same token, there comes a point where you lose what the sight of what we actually do. You know, and I'll refer to Kalani on this. Like when it comes to like firearms training, like you want to keep it to a certain level of reality,
Yeah.
but there comes a point where like we have people out there who are teaching firearms training who've never fired a gun before, and just kind of like making this shit up in their head, sort of thing.
Yeah.
Like I had the luxury of working with a group once, and they had a kill room, and we did this whole scenario, and the guys I was working with, like, their groupings are really small, and I peppered the entire place because I was all freaking out. And but that was so real for me. It just gave me a complete reality of
Yeah.
what I'm actually doing, what I need to work on. And going back to the martial arts aspect, it's hard for us to differentiate what's real and what isn't because our instructors kind of regurgitated information from other people.
Kind
And
of like an
some
assembly line, right? Coming
Yeah,
down.
and we lose it. That's why I look for people like Kalani. I look for people like my buddy Adam, or people who've been in the thick of it, or some of my fellow Dawn brothers, because they've been there and I've been there, and I can kind of see where this information is. And like I was saying before with Rich Parsons' question, is like I went to the original art, went to the combat side, and went back to see where does all this fit in, and what has just been made up bullshit. Because I know that the three of us have been in a seminar where the guy teaching it is making it up as he goes along. Because he's like, I got an hour and 45 left, and I got to come up with some bullshit here to teach these guys. Okay, let's do the hammer strike 2,000 times.
I
You know,
I went to a seminar where I was never asked to be to be the uke because I fucked up the instructor's technique because I was, but people don't react like that. Like that's not a you want me to what is it the Jim Carrey in Living Color sketch?
Oh, you
Like
said
many beginners, you attacked me incorrectly, right? One of
dude.
those.
So get this.
We've all been there.
I was at a Matt Thornton seminar once. I had no idea who Matt Thornton was. I was just supporting a friend of mine who was hosting him. And I had my, this is when the karambit's were really famous, like the
Yeah.
Emersons. And he's like, hey, what's in your pocket? I'm like, oh, it's my karambit. And he's like, can I see it? And I pull it out and I give it to him. And he's like, opens it up. He's like, well, what are you going to do now that I have my blade? And I pulled up my other knife and I slapped him in the back. I'm like, I'm going to stab you with this, motherfucker. And I was laughing. And I had no idea I'm talking to this Matt Thornton. I'm like patting him on the back.
That is freaking. Here's another question. There's a question from Glenn.
Great, Glenn.
I know. What are
How's it?
What are some current things that you have found that helps with rehab recovery as you age?
Alcohol.
Sauna, cold dip, silicone, bands, yoga, beer.
Yeah, booze, bourbon for me. No, actually, and this was actually a kind of funny thing. This is part of what, I believe Glenn was the one who asked or mentioned the comment about how heavy I had been before. I had always been one of those guys where all the old men were telling me you got to take good care of your body because, it goes away, and I was, late 20s, early 30s stud, like, shut up, old man. And now that I'm crippled, I realize the wisdom in it. Glenn, for me, especially with my shoulders, and my shoulders are just have been problematic forever. Three things have really helped. Getting back into like club bells and mace bells, anything that has a rotational element, a weighted rotational element for my shoulders has been miraculous. Intermittent fasting, not eating for part of the day. I mean, there's, all this stuff is that you can find this research for yourself. And finally, cold plunges.
Yeah.
I mean, I live in Tucson, we don't get that cold, but the water still, my pool still gets down to about upper 30s, low 40s, which is kind of ideal temperature for a cold plunge, and I do about 5 minutes every day, that has really,
What's that
really
do?
helped.
Wow, what does that do?
So there's a whole bunch of things. It stimulates the body's response to cortisol, stimulates production of brown fat, which is good. It burns, all this other thing, all these other things. But for me, what I've found is it really combats the inflammation.
Okay.
And the release of the norepinephrine, epinephrine, which if you can do 10 minutes in a single jaunt,
Okay.
for me, it's almost like a clock. Right at 10 minutes, my body dumps a whole bunch of those chemicals, and it's almost like a moment of enlightenment. And I kind of use that, as my morning prayer time. I feel more in touch with God, or the sky is bluer and the birds are singing more, more joyously. But it's really interesting. It's almost exactly 10 minutes for me. Every single time my body gets this big dump of good chemicals, oxytocin. I could be saying all the wrong things, but really good. It's been incredibly beneficial.
The
It's actually funny
information.
because like my wife's a massage therapist and a yoga instructor, and for the first 10 years of our marriage, she's been saying you should really stretch. And it was funny when I was in Spain teaching. It's the same thing. It was like lonely was like I this is hilarious. The day before I left for the seminar, I fell off a 10-foot ladder and fractured my hip, and I went out there anyways.
You got like the worst.
And and he's like,
car
you
accident, falling
feel
off
like
a
a
ladder.
stone.
Pulling a Rene.
But like, no, one thing is stretching. Absolutely, yoga is amazing. Cold plunges are amazing. I've been fasting. I do a 3-day fast once a month, and every 4 months I do a 10-day fast, which is it's brutal. It makes me really angry, but I find afterwards I feel awesome.
10 days? What do you just water?
I actually usually like just drink bone broth.
I couldn't do that.
Chicken.
3 days, maybe. 10 days?
Yeah, it's not fun, but it's again, and I was like, when I was fighting, like I think when Kalani and I in that video when we fought, I was like 235, 240, and I hover between 190 and 205 now. And when I started training heavily, I right now I'm dumping down to about 180.
Wow.
And it just I find it easier. And also, and Kalani might find this hard to believe, I really like cut out the alcohol as well, so that helped me because
that is the surest sign that we're in the end times, as far as I'm concerned.
Because
Rene's given up the booze.
Because we used to hit it hard before a gathering, like
Dude, I would be cursing your name, bro. Like multiple mornings waking up like fucking Rene. Just
breaking into hotel. What do you call it?
I don't know what you're talking about. I wasn't there.
You weren't there, but breaking into hotel swimming pools.
Ooh.
And then hopping on an airplane 2 hours later with no clothes in my bag.
That was your own poor planning, in my opinion. But yeah. No, I agree. The fasting, that's a good one. I celebrated my 50th birthday by doing a 7-day fast. Nothing but water and black coffee.
So 7 days, just water
and black coffee.
So what was the worst point after the
worst point is when he started sending me these weird pictures of himself.
Hey, you said you wanted to join my OnlyFans account. I just given you a preview. That's all.
Stop sending me pictures after the cold plunge.
Look, I'm a turtle. No. It's for me it wasn't too bad because I kind of cheated my way into it. I'm keto is a eating protocol that works really well for me. So I was already in ketosis when I started the fast, so I didn't have that massive energy system reset that's really hard for a lot of people.
Oh, the keto.
Usually it hits them around day 2, when they drop into ketosis, and it gets really, really hard. But for me, honestly, the worst thing about it was I got this really weird metallic taste in my mouth that I couldn't get rid of because all I had to get rid of it was water and black coffee. That for me, that was the hardest thing about
For
it.
me,
7 days.
for me is making pizza for my kids and handing them a slice. Like, here you go, kids. Have a slice. Oh, you want some more pasta?
Oh my God, that could not be easy. Wow. So how many during that 7 day period? How much weight did you lose?
I think it was close to 10 pounds, something like that. Right around there. That was the one. It was my first 7 day fast. It was my first extended fast, and I consider anything beyond 4 days an extended fast. So I didn't work out at all. I'm currently on day 3 of another 7 day fast. I'm still doing my regular workouts. I still, as of right now, feel great. It's kind of weird. It's almost counterintuitive.
I would say, yeah. I mean,
But
I think
After
there's
you
a
do it
lot
for
of really
while,
good
though,
research out
it's
there.
kind of normal, right? Like, I remember the first time I fasted, I was like, I'm ready to go nuclear on the next person that says hello to me. And then, like, after a while, I was like, same thing. All I drink is either like fizzy water or coffee.
Yeah.
But for my longer fast, I have to do because I'm still working. I got to do like bone broth just to keep something in my body.
Well, yeah,
Just a little bit.
you've got to have exactly.
Mm.
One other thing I found that I hadn't really been paying attention to is really maintain your electrolytes when you're doing an extended fast, because your body runs out of them, and since you're not bringing in any kind of food, you deplete out of those really, really quickly. So get some good, like electrolyte salts or something like that.
I've heard like 1 day, 2 day fast. This is the first time I'm hearing somebody doing it 7 days or 10 days, man. Wow.
It's what keeps me so happy.
Yeah.
I noticed that my last 10-day fast, I got into 2 car accidents.
Because oh my God. Here's Mike Raymond. If your training doesn't look like the violence of the news, you're fooling yourself. Mike Raymond, Medusa. We got Elric. What's Elric saying here? I'm just catching up on the comments, guys. I'm neglecting. Elric is saying the lack of nuance in the realms of sparring, pressure testing, fighting, and violence. I like what the guy in the red shirt was alluding to, a need to expand domains. That would be Growling Dog, and I would highly recommend Elric.
355.
Episode 355.
And listen, like, again, I just want to make sure that we I reiterate, like, this is just the way I interpret my art, and I just want to make sure that we at least keep some sort of sense of reality to it. And if you're happy going to the club and doing the drills, and that's as far as you want to take it, cool. Just remember what you're doing. You are drilling. You are, like, do you have a better chance than the average person? Yes.
Yeah.
But
I know a lot of violent people out there who've never trained a day in their life.
I know.
Who are just straight up dangerous.
Yeah. It's got that intent. Here's Dogzilla saying it's raining in.
Oh, God damn it. Fucking Dogzilla. So it's raining in Pocky Park is probably what the comment is.
Yes.
So little background on that comment. If we have the time, little background on that comment.
Sure.
When Dogzilla was in Hawaii, like I said, I was fighting with the Full Contact Hawaii crew. We'd caught the rumor that Dogzilla was moving to Hawaii, and we were all just so excited to be able to, train with this dude, this legend. I mean, his favorite game is Squash the Bug. We'd all seen the tapes. And it was everything, man. It was like when I stepped out with Arlen and stepped out with Eric. I stepped out and I was scared, and I hadn't been scared in a little while, and I was scared again. And training with him, again, the learning curve is steep. You have to improve or at least correct your mistakes very quickly. But one of the worst beatings I ever took from him, obviously you've seen the size of the man. He's a monster.
Yeah.
And I'm not known for my mobility game when I go out and spar, and when I'm at the gatherings, I'm not really the guy who dances around. But against Dogzilla, I had to be. Until it was raining and the grass was slick and I couldn't be nearly as mobile. And Dogzilla beat the ever-living shit out of me, and I had 3 giraffes as my witness because Pocky Park is directly across the street from Honolulu Zoo. So the giraffes watched me just get crushed
The
by
giraffe
Dogzilla.
watching you taking a beating. Oh my God! By the
Yeah,
hands
so
of-
so anytime he wants to get in my head, he whispers to me that it's raining in Pocky Park.
Oh, that's.
You know what's really funny about that? Like when I first met Dogzilla, in my head, I was like, we're the same height. Like it just like it was. I have this thing whenever I meet people. Whenever I meet people, I always see them as my height. I never like think of them as big or as small to me. It's this weird thing. And then I think it was Nick sent me a picture of me beside Dogzilla. I'm like, is that his little kid beside him? Holy shit. That's me. Like the absolute fear just kind of kicked in my head. I'm like, that dude's a monster.
Oh God! The first time I showed up in Santa Fe, you see Arlen, you see Mark, and you see Eric all next to each other. You're like, oh yeah, they're average-sized human beings. And then I show up in Santa Fe, and Arlen's 6'2", and his head's almost touching the ceiling of his home, and I'm like, oh Christ, what have I gotten into? Yeah, I mean, these guys were I mean, they were mythical in my mind.
We
You know
heard
what's
about
funny,
all
dude?
about
I was,
it.
and I know we're going off topic, but since we are, who cares?
Oh, Elk saying
The first time
watch
the
list,
first time I
man.
fought Arlen was at my when I moved up in Krabi Kraban, and we had the big ceremony at the end. We're supposed to fight, and I was suffering from like altitude sickness. And he was waiting until I would like almost pass out and just start beating on me. And as I was fading in and out of consciousness, I just hear people laughing, and I was like, "God damn it!"
And that's the beauty of luring people to Santa Fe to beat on them, man.
That's rough. I'm pretty much caught on the comment. I don't think I missed any questions. Yeah, folks, if you got questions, phone in. Otherwise, I'm moving on here. Okay.
So one thing that I was like, I kind of like threw out yesterday is the whole WeCat thing,
Yeah.
and
Mm.
the
Yeah,
only
we
reason
talk
I
about
brought it up is
other
someone
formats.
I heard someone talk about that recently. They were saying, well, WeCat it's not just point sparring, but it represents the blade when they fight and everything else, and it's just like, man, like if you're gonna do that, and I don't want to shit on you WeCat people, so please, like, don't email me or send me messages. But if the stick is supposed to represent a blade, then use a blade. You're wearing enough armor. You know what I mean?
Well, I think my issue with WeCat, and again, if I burn bridges, it's not my intent to offend people.
Yes, it is.
But it is my intent to say what I honestly believe. I see a lot of the WeCat tournaments, and they have the videos of them training for the fights, and it's it's beautiful, it's fluid, it's really good, and then it's like the fury of the Abanico when they actually get in there. And if it represents the blade, I mean, you both have died so many times over.
I don't think it's blade. It can't. There's no way that.
I mean, if they're saying the stick represents the blade,
which is, I can't stand that either. That's got like taken to the extreme now. Well, the stick, it's like, no, if you're doing sword work, you should be trained with a sword. I totally,
Yeah, it's a club. You're hitting somebody with a club. If you're training with a blade, you're talking about draw stroke, touching with the center, pulling to the tip. Right? It's a whole different mechanic applied to it. But I think you bring up a good point. Both of you bring up a good point. Is that myth, man? The stick represents a blade.
I know. I'm so sick of it. I can't stand it. It's like you see these KI guys and they wonder why they can't do some of the defensive movements or they don't try any because you got a stick in your hand. So just by association, the stick in hand, you're not going to try frilays. You're not going to even attempt to do that stuff because you got a stick. I mean, damn, if you're going to do KI, just Get a sword. I just don't.
Train with absolutely. Train with a piece of steel.
I just
It changes the mechanics.
Or if anything, the hard plastic or whatever, but it resembles a sword. Whatever, you know what I mean? It's just
It drives me crazy, like especially the whole Abanico, where people are hitting each other with Abanicos, and it's like 25 Abanicos.
it's Cortegabata. They're trying to get those points. So the whole thing with the Cortegabata is that you're really, so now the judge is on the sideline is, literally, marking.
Just tick marking. Yeah.
Yeah, I hear it's a process.
Have you honestly ever looked at one of those matches and tried to like?
I have. I can't. There's no way I could count those. No.
And I just sit there and I'm like, you both lose. It's like,
yeah.
For me, if someone were like to get really pissed off and punch the other guy, I'm like, that's the winner. That guy wins.
Hey, check this out. Brian made it. Weak calf is to stick fighting as fencing is to sword fighting.
That's a I like that. That's a good way. That's a good analogy. I like that.
Brian comes out.
That is.
And then fine. Here we go, my student. Fine. I'll get a training sword. Yes. I've been trying to instill it in you for some time now.
Here's a fun drill. My original instructor, Datu Mani Nitulama, one of the things he had us do fairly early in my training was we all went to the hardware store, bought a bunch of cheap machetes, and we actually swung edge to edge. And he's like, you feel how it locks up?
The bind.
He's like, that's the reality of a blade fight. Is these blades cut into each other and they hook.
Yeah.
Whoever can get that Pak Sao, and now the Abanico makes sense because I'm simply trying to get around your blade. With that forward pressure, the Pak Sao and Abanico, and then I hit the neck and I draw a cut across the neck. Okay, there we go. Like you were talking about, Rene. Now the combat application is starting to make sense.
Yeah. No, totally. If you come around Cadena Real and boom, and I come around Abanico, I mean, absolutely. I mean, in order you get that bind, the guy who got that free from the bind is probably the guy who went home that day.
Absolutely.
I remember Steve Wilson talking about that, saying that, hey, these swords are really expensive, and people probably didn't smash blade to blade, right? Like in the way that we envision that people did it, right? And I remember when I was in South America and I saw these two guys actually fighting with machetes. It was more of a it was literally like stock, and then there's like a vicious attack, and then one dude's dead and the other guy walks away, right? It was like it was pretty crazy. It was pretty intense.
I've seen some just on I forget, somebody post some groups and on Facebook here will post some of them, and they just you'll see that they're kind of talking, all of a sudden guy comes just flying in, rattles off whatever, and guy limps off. And
did you see that video that was posted recently about the dude with a hammer? Like a guy
hammer.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy. So this guy had a machete and he took on 4 guys and he was swinging.
No,
and the guy had a hammer behind his hand, behind his body, and he sidestepped. And when the guy focused on someone else, he just cracked him in the head with a hammer. And
oof.
I didn't see that. Wow.
It was pretty intense, but I was like, man, that's that's pretty good. Like that was pretty.
I mean, how can you criticize the technique? It fucking worked, and it worked in a real world. You're like, okay, brain the dude. Exactly.
So, real machete fighting is point fighting. Real machete fighting. I don't know. Is it point fighting?
I will say one thing.
Please explain.
One suggestion I would make, if people haven't seen Pappy's Kali means to scrape.
No.
I would highly recommend that. It's really interesting. He interviews 4 individuals living in the Philippines who actually used the art to defend themselves, and they're not necessarily in good health. They survived, but some of their body parts don't quite work as well as it once did. I mean, and that's the reality, especially a weaponized fight is yeah, okay, if you survive, maybe you survive. There's no guarantee you've got both arms, you've got all your eyes. I mean, that's the horrific reality.
I have to check that out. Where's that watchable? Has he got it on his?
I don't know if he's got it on a streaming thing. I know you can get it off of his website,
I think he has it on his
bloodsport.com.
OnlyFans too.
Yeah, but scraping takes on a whole different term in his OnlyFans site.
Yeah, I would definitely like to check that out. Matter of fact, Glenn's saying it means it's a great DVD documentary. Yeah, I would love to see that.
Yeah.
Sorry, what was that machete fighting is point fighting thing? I didn't quite understand.
No, I'm asking. No, I'm asking if Paulo can expand. That's Paulo, if you can, yeah, just if you don't mind.
I'll certainly let him explain, but I mean, to me, it kind of makes sense, right? Like the whole goal of point fighting is to touch and not be touched. Yeah, with a machete, I think that would be the ultimate goal, right? Like touch the other dude and not get touched yourself.
Well, then that will come back to reality. People really want to hurt you. They're not going to show you this.
Well, yeah, and that comes. Well, it comes down to your attacker's goal. Is his goal to intimidate you, or is his goal to kill you? Because if his goal is to kill you and he doesn't care what happens to him, that's a very, very different fight than a guy who's trying to scare you off with his machete. It's a very different situation.
And again, I 100% agree with you. And whatever my experience is, and I'm not saying it's like I'm the authority in this. Every time I've been, if there's a weapon involved in any of the things that I've seen over my almost 53 years of life, the people who show you are just trying to rob you and scare you.
It's an intimidation.
Want to hurt you, and again, and I say this, and I've said this ad nauseum. The 2 times I've been stabbed, I never saw the blade.
Nope.
It just happened. And I was lucky that it was only once, that they managed to cut me once before I reacted. And my reaction was like, oh, look, I'm bleeding, and I pass out. Or, I have something in my back. And then it just, every time I've seen someone get stabbed or anything else, it didn't look like that was what the intent was. Again, going back from reality of training to you want to knife tap with somebody. Hey, I'm not saying it may not work, and maybe it might work for a few people, but I am guessing that the percentage of people who survived knife tapping is very low compared to
we're gonna go down. We're gonna really digress here. I'm not gonna give you the whole thing on knife tapping.
Do it.
It's folks are not gonna like it, man.
I love it. Do it.
That's one reason why I left a couple earlier groups and just created my own crap, because I couldn't make their stuff work against guys who were not even trained, just coming in like freight trains, and could not make. Here I am, the FMA guy, could not make that stuff work. I mean, it was freaking. You want to talk about a sad day? Brian's asking, is scraping like scissoring?
Are we talking about Pappy's OnlyFans site again? I
think so.
I think that's a different video we're talking about.
I know. Until we get back to what the clarification on that is.
Well, here we go. The kai means to scrape, according to Glenn. So, Glenn, would you know if it can mean scissoring as well? Brian would like to know, if anybody knows for that matter.
Well, the title of the movie comes from a quote from one of the translators. He's like, it's an old Malay word. Kali means to scrape in the Malay language.
Okay.
And that's where the title of the video comes from. I don't know if the question about is scraping like scissoring. I'm not sure what scissoring
goonting
would be, because again, here's the other thing. Every single Filipino martial art calls one particular technique something else. Like, what we call palis or cruzada.
Does it go like this?
No, he's saying it was a joke.
No South Park stuff, man.
He's saying it was a joke.
Oh. All right.
I'm naive like the best.
So he was talking about Pappy's OnlyFans then. Good.
I'm telling you, you know.
That's the iPappy dog.
And 5 pages. Here we go. Knife tapping, bladed aggressive patty cake. Yes, that sells and makes money and progresses you. Yes, and I'm going to stop there.
You know, it's.
Well,
I think I mentioned this before. Like even like with Krabi Krabong, like I remember Arlen telling me, you know, like a general would go into like a village and teach. You know, say, hey, the Cambodians are coming over that mountain. I got 2 days to teach you a bunch of stuff. If you survive, I'll teach you more. And then in times of peace, people just have to make shit up because they have to make a living. And like, listen, and it goes back to 64 attacks. Why am I learning 64 attacks if I only use 3 of them in combat?
When they were 36 or 32 at one time and 16 at one time. Why are you learning 64?
And it's like
there's a whole nother episode right there.
Yeah. Because you got to draw out that payment stream. That's what it is.
Right. You know what it is too, Rene? I think that and I always thought about this, like, how did some of this stuff get into like curriculums per se? I think some of it is, they would do demos and the crowd would maybe like get so ecstatic and all that. Oh, guys, they loved it. Let's put this in the curriculum. You know what I mean? I'm wondering if that maybe had some things to do with it for like obviously monetary value.
Or your instructor says, hey, this is just a drill. And then you take it and think it's gospel and put it into the curriculum.
And it gets put in there. I think all the above probably, right? All having to do with what though? The root of all evil. I mean, money, right? You know what I mean?
And
let's make this bigger now. So we have more levels.
And I'll refer back to Kalani on this. Like, I'm pretty sure, you know, Kalani's a no nonsense, you know, firearms instructor. I'm 100% sure you run into shit where people are like, hey, this is look what I saw. If you grab your shirt and pull out your left nut, you can shoot this faster, right?
I went to a I went to a seminar where this guy was going to teach, you know, shooting in tight, you know, shooting in close quarters, you know, and it's something that I certainly don't claim to be an expert, but I've trained with some of the OGs and kind of that material, you know, South Narc, Rogue Methods up out of Phoenix, you know, there's some really good guys out there. But in the course of it, he proceeds to put his arm around the guy's neck and then presses the training pistol to the guy's face. And I'm like, so you're going to put a round through your arm? And he's like, no. I was like, yes, you are. You're shooting through the cranial-ocular cavity, which is the least amount of skull interference. It's going to punch out his brainstem, and then you're going to drill around right out through your elbow. So you're teaching us how to shoot ourselves. Needless to say, I was I was not invited to the rest of the seminar
again, right?
Yeah.
If I may, and I won't mention too many names, but my absolute favorite Kalani story was when he was at a seminar and, you know, a gun guru dropped his mag at the front line as people were shooting, and he reached forward in front of the firing line to grab it. And I was like, I'm a fucking novice when it comes to so many of these things. And to hear that blew my mind. It was awesome.
Yeah. I mean, there's so much, you know, the Hollywood garbage out there, and I think it's twofold. I think it's one, money, absolutely.
I think money's.
It's two is what we touched on earlier. They've never applied it, so to them, yeah, this could very well work in a real scenario. You know, the knife tapping. One of my favorite things to do, you know, to really get people to understand is, you know, do you have a young child? You know, yeah, I got a 7-year-old. Give them a Sharpie and tell them you'll give them $10 for every mark they put on you and see if your knife tapping works.
Well, that's why I give my kids a Sharpie that's dried out. And
meanwhile, Rene's not above punching his kids, so you know, there's that. They got to learn at some point. You attacked
me wrong.
Yeah. But like going back to the gun thing, it's just like I've seen literally in the last little while, like martial arts instructors making their way into gun culture
Yep.
and just teaching just craziness, like absolute craziness. And there's no reference point outside of maybe they've trained with someone else. They're not former military or
Or
or anything else. And I just sit there and I'm like, but you're training military people, but you're not being honest with the fact that you don't have a fucking clue what you're actually doing.
it's scary. There's a group here, a self-defense sort of martial arts group that posted a video on their social media of one of their drills, and it's transition drill. They're going from their rifle to their pistol, and they sling their weapon back because I'm sure they saw Sonny Puzikas do it, as part of his AK Spetsnaz thing. But what they don't show you until you watch the whole video is they sling this AK behind them, transition to a pistol, take a couple shots, retransition to their AK, and then take a couple shots. So you just slung a loaded rifle with one in the chamber back across all your students who are behind you and someone who's filming you at this point. That's part of me, that's the shit that gets people killed. Just the sheer stupidity and the lack of understanding of what the reality is and why the guys you see on YouTube doing that are doing it. If you don't understand the transition drill, is because transitioning to a pistol is usually faster than a straight reload on your primary weapons. They don't understand what it is they saw, and they think they have the expertise to go ahead and try and show this. And it's, if you're not the cause of someone's death, you're going to get someone killed.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
and that's just the tragically real aspect that I'm sure just drives all three of us insane at points.
Or they don't even show that they're switching back to safety or whatever else, right? Like I've seen a couple, like one of the guys I was working with a firearms company I was working up here, like when he was shooting, he was switching back to his safe and everything else.
Yep.
And nobody in the group saw it. And he actually stopped everybody and he was like, if you guys can't get this, I'm not doing this anymore with you guys.
Yeah.
And but for me, I was like, dude, like honestly, like I said, they're grouping like this and I'm grouping like the entire room, right? I wouldn't even call it grouping. It was more like, I hope there's 3 layers of plywood here.
Hey, whatever. If you're still on the plate, right?
They're saying,
well, according to this guy I met once.
Here's Glenn. All right, we got some comments here. Here's Glenn. Kai Means to Scrape documentary was directed and produced. We're back to that. Pappy Dog.
Yep.
Dean Franco, episode 465. Yeah, if Pappy's always welcome to come back on.
Oh, damn, that would be awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's okay.
Yeah. Matt, what do you usually put? MEH, Matt?
Yeah.
I'm like, geez. Okay. I'm just catching up with the comments here, guys. Hold on. Did they at least put the weapon on safe after empty?
No, so that was my big issue with it. Is the AK is it's not a unique platform, but if you don't train the AK, it's easy to make some mistakes. And based on the video that they posted, it didn't look like they had repositioned the safety because they didn't have one of the modified safeties that you can use just your index finger. It was one of the old school Soviet style. You've got to reach up with your middle finger and kind of disengage. It didn't look like they re-engaged as they transitioned, which was, for me, what was, among many other issues, was just an egregious kind of violation. Okay.
Brian's question is, why would you transition if your rifle is still working?
So the reason behind it is one of two things. Either you've suffered a malfunction on your primary weapon system or you've gone empty. And if you're in the middle of a gunfight, yeah, absolutely. If you've got a lull in the gunfight or you're not currently engaged, absolutely. Fix the malfunction, reload, get into it. But if you're driving into a situation, you're currently in the middle of a gunfight and your primary does not go bang when you press the trigger, transitioning to your pistol is simply quicker. It just it gets you back into the fight. It gives you the ability to return fire quicker than anything else, rather than trying to take time to diagnose the issue. You know, and of course this is what I'm talking about. People, they see this like, why would you do that if you're by yourself? You know, you would. Yeah, you're also talking about the men who are teaching this are, you know, usually coming out of military, coming out of law enforcement. They're talking about an urban buildup. There's, you know, it's a CQB situation. You're responsible for a sector of fire. Your primary goes down. You still got to cover that sector of fire. You got to get back into the fight as quickly as possible. Okay. You know, now once the threat is handled, you have a momentary lull. Yeah, absolutely. Fix your rifle. Get that primary weapon platform back up and running. But it's just, you know, and multiple, and I'm certainly not the guy who's like, oh, listen to me because I'm a bad motherfucker who's done it. No, like, I've trained it. The men who taught it to me, I understand the reasoning behind it. But it's not like I was ever downrange and needed to do this, you know. But I understand the reasoning behind it, and when I teach it, I make sure to explain what the reasoning is behind it. You know, it's not just because it looks cool or because you saw it in John Wick or you saw it in, you know, some badass, you know, Spec Ops movie. There's a very, you know, real reason. Because I'm transitioning because if I don't return fire, you know, there's a good chance I'm going to die where I am. So I need to get back into the fight as quickly as possible. Okay. But that's the purpose. That's the reasoning behind that particular drill. You only transition if your primary has stopped working and you don't have the time to diagnose what the issue is.
There you go. Okay. Just getting, okay. We went a little, which was my fault with that. We went off track. You guys touched upon in a test run, you know, kind of like the testing of self. And when it was more fight oriented, and also you guys touched on the ill will. So, in other words, be friends at the end of the day. So, I mean, I'm assuming, generally speaking, all you guys, generally speaking, I'm sure the majority of you guys get along. If I'm correct, right?
I think I think in the end we're all, you know, we're all in the same boat. We may not agree with each other's politics or things that we look at, but you know, I always find it really funny because we're like, you know, Kalani and I joke around and we're all like happy and everything else. But for me, it's always funny when we are at the back of the line where we're chatting and laughing, and as we start getting closer to the front, that's when my switch starts to hit. And I remember that fight that we sent you, that when Kalani and I fought, where one of us broke their arm. I'm not going to say it was me, but it probably was. Like, we were joking, like we were like cracking jokes and everything towards the end. And then when we got to the very front, we didn't say a single word to each other. And I think just before we walked out, I remember like saying, "Hey man, good luck." And then I just remember him looking at me like, "Go fuck yourself." And
lies and deceit.
But that's the thing, is just like, for me, it doesn't get real until I'm on that mat. and once it's on that mat, it stays on that mat for me, you know, like and then when I walk back off, it's all, you know, hey, funny, you know, all fun and jokes again. But for me personally, I just, whether I like it or not, I do go to dark places with it. It just and I like it. It just, that's what helps me get through it. You know,
So,
if I thought this was like happy go lucky, hey, we're going out there and we're gonna hit each other as hard as we can, and you're gonna break your jaw, I wouldn't do it. You know, I need that element of fear. I need
like,
that.
It's interesting.
If I may,
go ahead.
I find it funny because like I said, Rene and I see eye to eye on so many things, but for me, it's a very different thing. There's actually a couple of videos of the fights where, you know, the light hits right and you can see through my mask, and I've got the biggest just shit-eating grin on my face. I'm having a blast, and you know, I'll tell you right now, Rene, my fight with Rene, and my fight with Gong Fu Dog when he was fighting with a 3-sectional staff. Those were two of the most terrifying fights I've ever been in. But you can hear me giggling at various points during each of those fights. You know, and I think for me, that's what grounds me in why I make the distinction between sparring versus fighting.
Gotcha.
As scared as I am, and make no mistake, I'm not trying to say like, oh, I'm not scared at all. I'm terrified. I'm terrified, but I'm having such a good time because it's really for me. It was just kind of, you know, it was so many things. It was, hey, I'm finally here doing this after I saw those videos. I was like, oh my God, I want to do that one day. I'm here with guys who have a very similar mentality. I can tell by the way I hear the stick cutting through the air that no, they're actually trying to hit me really, really damn hard. You know, it's just this joyous celebration for me. It's kind of the pinnacle of I don't know. There was a CNN. We did a CNN story once they came out to one of the gatherings, and it brings me at least to a very zen-like state. People talk about living in the present.
I'll tell you right now, there's nothing like being in the moment when you've got somebody who's committed to putting a lot of punishment on you, you know, and finishing out with that.
You know, my favorite is when you actually like agree to do something and you have no idea why you agreed. You know, like I look at the same gathering when I fought Thomas as well, and he has his 3-section staff, and I walked out with one stick, and he's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I don't know." I just thought this would be fun, and he's just like, he told me, it's like it freaked him out because I just decided to go somewhere else with it, right? Like not something he's used to, and it was hilarious to me. It cracked me up.
But here's the thing, Rene. When you mentioned before, you go to that dark spot. So when you go to that dark place, you know, that really dark place, right? That you alluded to. Do you forget like who's in front of you, or are you seeing just this person? And maybe not forgetting is not the correct way to put it, but in other words, the person that you went through the line, going up to, talking to, and all that. In other words, are you, when you go in that dark space, are you forgetting that there's a guy that you do like, or is it the fears taking over and the adrenaline and all that, where that becomes, you're just seeing?
I kind of, you know, and again, I'm not trying to sound like some sort of weird tough guy or
No,
anything,
I don't think so. No.
It's like this weird evolution for in the back of the line, we're all laughing and everything else. And then when we get to the front, I just don't see that person as my friend anymore. I just don't. It's strange. I know that this person and I are going to fight, and I have this thing in my head that once I want to fight somebody, or let me rephrase that. Once I fight somebody, I have to remove myself from liking them in order to fight them. Like I remember Pat Gagnon, Green Mountain Dog. We were at the front of the line, and I was just staring at him. And he's like, "You okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah." He goes, "Are you sure?" I'm like, "Yeah." What's your problem? And it was like funny because like just before that, we're doing the whole cheddar, you know, like all these jokes and everything else. But we got to the front, I was like, "This guy's gonna try to knock me out." And and in my head, whatever my life experiences are, kick in. It's just like it's a fight. I have to fight this person now, and we can be friends afterwards, or literally. And it's weird because I remember there's been a couple times where I'm swinging, and I hear time, and I stop my stick, and I just pull back, and I give the person a hug, and it's like, "Hey, man, we're good," right? But during that whole exchange, me personally, I have to go to that place, or I automatically go to that place. So I don't know. That's what it is for me. I'm not saying it's like that for everybody. There's guys out there Trash Dog Eric. He's like the happiest person in the world. He's like, "Oh, we're going to fight and we're going to have fun." And I sit there and I'm like, "How can this person like they don't even look nervous to me?" Like I literally like when I line up sometimes I want to get out of the lineup just because my body is just saying, "Don't do this."
Wow. So you build up and then no, I think it's interesting. I don't think it's like bizarre. I just think it's interesting the way you're portraying it and how what you need to do to
I think
get
that's
in
why we
there.
used to go. Like we used to go drinking the night beforehand. It's just like it's just like get exceptionally hungover and then go and fight.
So I think
So crabby during the fights, you were hungover.
Oh God.
so I'm taking it, Kalani, you do not experience what Rene does when you're going in there.
No, yeah, like I said, for me, it's quite the opposite. You know, I'm having fun. I'm fully aware of just how much I like this person. You know, but I think for me, Rene talks about how that helps him stay a little detached. I think for me, that's what helps me stay a little detached. It helps me kind of be, for lack of a better term, kind of meta cognizant of the whole situation. It's what keeps me from, or gives me the ability to recognize when I hurt this dude. Like if I hit them and they wobble a little in a really weird way, it gives me kind of that ability to step back and be like, are you okay? Should we stop? Like how but that's just what it is for me. It's that's where I go when I step out in the fights. And I'm not saying I'm not nervous. Like I said, we joke, haha, laugh, and then we get right up there and we still joke and laugh, but it's certainly not, quite as funny as it was when we were, 8 fighters deep, 8 fighters back from the queue. But there are a couple of the gathering videos where I'm putting on my mask, and Ron does a great job of getting this shot of me right as I'm putting on my mask, and I wink at the camera and I'm smiling because I'm having a great time. But that, yeah, for whatever it is, that's where I go. I think when the goodwill goes away for me, it's, we talk, in various circles, martial arts, real fighting, self-defense, shooting. We talk about having a switch, right? We flip a switch. And for me, the lack of goodwill is my switch. It puts me in a very different mindset, I think.
My favorite is when you broke your arm and I didn't know, and I kept squeezing your arm because you had a big bruise on it.
Well, I mean, I fucking Doc Lau was like, oh no, I don't think it's broken. Like, oh, okay, Doc, I'm gonna go take one more fight then.
Hey,
go out for another fight.
Dogzilla,
and thank God my wife is a smarter person than I am. We get back to the house, I take a shower. I've got this just massive, goose egg on my arm, and so I'm like, oh, I'm gonna wrap it, to trying to compress that swelling and hopefully. And I wrap it around. The first time I go to cinch it, I kind of fade and I wobble and I come conscious again. I do it because I'm not smart. And so I keep doing it and I don't make the link between every time I tighten the bandage, I get very woozy. And I finish wrapping it and I look at my wife like, hey, look at me. And she's looking at me with an expression like, you're the stupidest man I've ever met. She's like, we're going to the hospital now. We go in, and we go in, and I tell the intake person like, I got hit on the arm, it hurts. I don't think I broke it. They take an X-ray, and I hear the X-ray tech laugh from the other room, just like out loud, like, he's like, listen, I'm not a doctor, I'm not qualified to diagnose you. He's like, but you want to see the picture? And it was like 6 millimeters of displacement, like the bones weren't even lined up. But yeah, I very clearly remember Rene squeezing that I guess it was, annual payback for the love tap I gave him during our fight.
Yes, the love tap. But like I said, to your credit, you made it to the bar that night. I actually have a picture of you and I.
I've got the cast. That's right. I forgot about that.
Hey guys, Dogzilla is asking if can you two come to the 40-year tribal gathering anniversary?
Absolutely.
When's the 40-year?
Where's the 40-year? Probably Hermosa Beach. Nobody's is answering when yet. Location seems to be Hermosa Beach.
Actually, Mike, I got one for you too. We're doing a gathering in Toronto in August right now with Arlen and Eric. So you know, if you can come up here, that'd be good too.
You know, I'm gonna have to come up to Canada one of these times and not get my ass whipped. Like going to Canada, I associate it with pain. It's just, you know, it's painful going to Canada because every time I get beaten up.
Me too.
Okay. As far as that, so when is that in August, Rene?
We're working on everything right now. I was a little out of commission, so we're just working on all that stuff right now. But definitely working on it. So I'll have a date for everybody who's interested in coming, and everybody. I mean, everybody's welcome. It's Dean said he's going to come up and he's going to fight, or Mean Dean, as I like to call him, and it should be good. It should be good.
355, Rene. 355.
You know, it's funny, man. Like these things are like they're so much fun. Like for me, it's not fun during until after, and then when you actually process everything that actually you just survived and went through, it's like it's awesome.
Yeah.
The 224. Okay. The 224 tribal will be early May. I believe right now, potentially it's the 4th and 5th of May.
Okay.
Huh.
Okay.
I leave for Spain May 20th for the. I'm teaching at the surf camp again this year, and I think they're actually getting together to do this time I'll actually get a beasting done, so I'm looking forward to that.
Hey, nice.
I'm still not looking forward to it, but
It couldn't happen to a better guy. I'm gonna ask him to put a little extra sauce on it for you.
Holy grounds.
Oh, hey, give me the name of one of some of the guys that I can meet when I go to Spain in March, so I can tell him exactly where to hit you for me.
Man, I'll say one thing, man. The one thing I really love about those Euros, those guys fight, man. Like they just fight, and they fight, and they drink, and they eat. It's like being at a Viking camp. It's pretty crazy. Like the first night I was there, bro, I was like, so Cherry Dog from Canada went to the camp with me, and the first night we were there, like my hotel was like 2 kilometers away, and I got lost walking back because I may have been drinking. And I was walking, and all of a sudden I heard bells. It was like just pouring down rain. And I look up, I was in a field full of goats. Just like absolutely terrified. I'm like, how the hell do I get here?
Dude, that is about the most Rene story I've ever heard, man. I said, drunk wandering around. I went up in a field with a bunch of goats.
Spanish goats.
Not just goats.
At least you're
people. The language,
you know.
That's freaking funny. Oh my god. What? Jeez.
So anyways, like we're saying, is stop calling your sparring fights, right?
Yes, as we were saying,
back on track.
Sparring is not fighting, and isolation sparring, anything other than that, is grilling. I think that's the conclusion. Yeah.
In my humble opinion.
Yeah. But this is awesome. We're going up. Wow, we're close to 2 hours. You believe it, man? When some of these things go, man, they just take a life on their own, and before you know it, it's like, holy crap. Randall, love this. Talk to you guys soon.
Whatever.
Yeah, outstanding. Semper Fi, Randall.
Jeez. But awesome. What do you got? Okay.
You know, I think if you ever meet Randall, Dean, that guy is an absolute maniac. He's the best in the world.
He's hands down. Absolutely.
Just absolute insane person. I love him.
How old is he?
He's older than you.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, awesome. Wow.
And also remember, when I got knocked out by Arlen, he was in his 60s.
That's crazy.
Oh, dude. Yeah.
Getting knocked out by a 6-year-old man. That's insane. That's like,
oh,
but
dude,
actually just no ordinary, obviously 6-year-old.
So because
Yeah.
In the earlier videos, you can see me wearing like my predator mask, which is a saber mask. Then I started wearing like the thinner mask. When I fought him, I actually pulled that out of retirement.
Wait, that, hell yeah, dude.
And he
When I fought
caved that
Arlen and I
mask.
fought Top Man, I had the 3-weapon mask. I
Yeah,
was,
and he caved
I wasn't
that
playing with
thing in.
losing brain cells. Come
Yeah.
on.
Oh, dude,
Or
he
have a
caved that.
permanent dent in your head, right?
Yeah. I've
And
still got a crease across my 3-weapons mask, like right across the front. It's a crease that Arlen laid in with his left hand with a non-telegraphic, no wind-up shot. And it was one of the just truly kind of when I was, after the fight and recognized how much damage he had done to the mask, I was just like, oh my God.
So, do you remember the video where Arlen gets his head cracked open and like blood
Yeah.
shooting out?
Yeah.
When he hit me, my lights went out and they kind of turned on halfway through and then turned off again. When I was on the ground, I actually put my hand inside my mask to see if I was
Because you
bleeding.
were picturing that scenario. Dude, I believe it. I believe it.
I was like, did this guy just break my skull? And it
Yeah.
took me a minute to figure out what was going on. And then my wife again was like, okay, that's it for today. You're done. And then like somebody was like, can you fight one more time? And I put an ice pack inside my mask.
Hey man, that's part of bringing guys up in the tribe, man. That's part of your responsibility.
No, that's when I realized my brain is done. Like I am.
That's wow. So, all right, Kalani, closing thoughts that you'd like for the community. Like, what would you on this subject matter?
I guess my closing thoughts, just kind of the summation is just be honest with yourself. Be honest with yourself is what you're doing. There's no disrespect for people who study the art for the art's sake or want to, be the master of all, 6,043 techniques. I've got no ill will towards them. More power to you. You all look better at doing the drills than I will ever look. Just be honest with yourself, and ultimately it certainly isn't for everybody, but at least once, just, maybe just once, test yourself with minimal gear against somebody who doesn't train in the same style. Just as a baseline to understand where you are. Ultimately, I think that's what it is just do what you do, have fun doing it, but be honest with yourself.
Well said. Yeah, absolutely. Rene, what closing thoughts, Rene, do you have for the community?
I really agree with Kalani on this. Like, do what you want to do. Like, train whatever you want to train in. But just remember, and ask your instructor questions, like who do they train with and what's their background? And did they actually experience this? Is this, regurgitated? Is this actually what they believe will actually work? Like we touched on it yesterday a little bit with boxing, like people who were
the gear. Yeah.
when the gear and then who actually box. But then we didn't really actually talk about people who do bare knuckle boxing. And like that transition is pretty insane, right? It's a completely different game. Because at that point, it's like you get hit with someone's bare fist. It's not like wearing a glove, even a 12-ounce glove. It's going to fucking suck.
Yeah.
And I'm not judging you at all with whatever you want to do. And God knows I've done a shit ton of traditional martial arts. And I love it. I do love it. But I also had to look at what the reality is within the game of where I was in my life and what I was doing. So I ask a lot of questions. And another thing is, if you have an instructor that says to you, you can only train with me and you can't train with someone else.
Oh my God, just out.
Run away.
Yeah, we've done episodes on that, man.
Looking at you as a dollar sign.
Indentured servitude, man. That's yeah.
And
leave.
I've had instructors that did that to me before, and I was like, see you later.
Yeah. That's a immediate bad sign when they try to automatically tell you what you can't do, and that never works out well.
Ask a lot of questions and just ask the people who you train with to be honest with you. And like Kalani said, once I think it's important for you to go out there and experience someone who doesn't have your best interest in your training, like just
someone who does not have your best interest at that moment.
Yeah, like we've all been to seminars when you're training with some jerk who's not sticking to
Yeah.
the drill and punches you in the face. Like that doesn't mean, besides the fact that they're an asshole, it just means that something is lacking with your perception of what's going on. And
Mm.
I had to deal with that when I started teaching seminars and when I started doing seminars. Is I got to learn to deal with something like that, right? And if my training isn't helping me, then there's something wrong with my training, or there's something wrong with my ideology or mentality of fighting.
Okay.
So, and also, whenever you're training with Kalani, just watch your left arm.
Just that's all. You just wanted to maybe add that in there. And any closing thoughts on 355? Hey, you know what happened today? Over the course of a couple of days, folks messaged me saying, how this episode was going to be more historical than
It's not that
355.
crazy, but
I had
okay,
to
keep going.
unfriend. I had to unfriend 10 people. And they're like, hey, how come you unfriended me? I'm like, this ridiculous notion that, that you think an episode is gonna be better than 355. I was like,
This goes back to reality. When reality is such a hard thing to deal with, you will say things like that.
yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. This was a spectacular episode. Yeah.
It was okay. Yeah.
Okay. Matt, wait, MEH?
I was, yeah.
Yeah, Matt. So, Kalani, I hope your experience was a good one on first coming on.
It was fantastic. I just really thank you for the opportunity for having me on, man. It's been a long time since I've just been able to sit and just kind of talk with people who understand where I'm coming from and talk about things that I'm passionate about and talk about things that are near and dear to my heart. And I really appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Yeah. Hey, do you do one of the episodes I want to do as far as a theme episode is you might be the right guy for it or know somebody. I want to do knife and gun, and I want to do if you don't practice drawing under pressure with a gun against somebody that's bridging that gap, not the 20-foot rule, but in there. Like, do you is that an area you tap into, play around with?
I would love to. So just as a teaser, when I teach the concealed weapons permit class or when I teach the EDC, like the everyday carry, for people who are considering carrying concealed on a daily basis, I tell them straight out, if you're at touch distance, the knife is the superior tool. At touch distance, the knife is the superior tool.
Yeah, the guys
that need to have that in your skill set. Okay. People who go for guns at close. I mean, hell, you can jump on YouTube, ASP, active self-protection, all kinds of videos of dudes trying to draw at touch distance, and the guns just are worthless. They're not an effective tool, or they aren't the most effective tool. If you have a knife at touch distance, it is by far the superior tool. And it's near and dear to my heart. I would love to,
So
I'd love to talk
with
you more about that. Absolutely.
It's easier to grab a gun than a knife at that distance.
What's that?
It's easier to grab a gun than it would be to grab a knife at that distance.
It is, and especially if you're dealing with a semi-automatic, if you manage to get that muzzle facing, somewhere else if there's a round in the chamber and it cooks off that round and you interfere with the cycle of that, gun and you induce a malfunction, well, now it's just a paperweight. Until they can clear that malfunction, it's a paperweight. You can't do the same thing. You can't simply reach out and grab the blade of a knife and, make it inoperable.
That'd be perfect.
It is by far, at touch distance, it is by far the superior tool, in my humble opinion.
No, perfect. Sold. Yeah, if you don't mind doing that, because it's always been a theme episode I want to do. I was just trying to find the right person. Because
I would love to.
Yeah, working with some folks that were I was working with some guys that were trying to draw under pressure with a gun, and they never did. And, the results weren't too good for them. Then they tried falling to the ground with some space. That yielded a little better. And then running away, that yielded a little better. You know what I mean? But anything but that, I was but that would be, I've really been wanting to do this. So if you're up for it, man, that'd be great.
I would love to. Absolutely.
And you can tell me your results, what you're finding, because there seems to be, and I'm not saying across the board, I don't want to generalize, but there seems to be, and you know more about this, my familiar with the gun community is very little, but there seems to be a lot of these folks incredible at target shooting, but a lot of them don't seem to practice drawing under pressure.
Oh, hands down. I mean, Southnark's class, his ECQC class, Extreme Close Quarter Concepts, it's eye-opening for people, especially for people who go in who are like gun people, because now you're starting from an entangled position. Some dude's punching you in the face, and you know what is the what's the old Brazilian jiu-jitsu? If you're a black belt and somebody punches you in the face, in the minute you become a brown belt, and they punch you in the face again, and now you're a purple belt, right? Your technique degrades. Same thing, man. That draw stroke, okay. I've watched people just bumble it, you know, and guys who are legitimate shooters, like Rene was saying, who put, you know, a quarter-size grouping on a target, but you mess them up during their draw stroke and everything falls apart just exponentially.
Nice. I can't wait to do this. I've been waiting to do this for literally almost 2 calendar years. I just haven't, you know what happened? I wanted to do this, but then another thing would come, and I had somebody to fit for there. I didn't really have any, so let's do it. Realistically, if you're okay, probably end of March, latest early April.
That would be fantastic. I would love that, man. Absolutely.
All right, well, it's sold. You're hired. All right.
Awesome.
You know what's funny about that? Like you were just saying, I was at a range where my pistol jammed and I couldn't get it. I had like a stovetop and I couldn't get it unjammed. And the range officer started talking to me and like telling me everything I should do, to the point where I had to turn around and say, "Can you please go fuck yourself?" I was getting like really angry because I couldn't get this thing to do. He just kept talking to me. And that's just me trying to unjam, so I can't even imagine.
Was this the same guy that tried to give you advice, or is this?
You're holding it wrong.
That was the computer programmer.
That was a previous. That's so funny. Oh, by the way, go ahead first.
Well, it's crazy, right? Like, again, like we were just talking again, and I know we're trying to wrap this up, but if someone like Kalani is giving you advice about firearms, right, and you're using that drill, and you got this dude who's doing like 3-gun competitions, and all of a sudden thinks in his head, "I know better than him."
Yes.
You know, and he's never been in the military, he's never done anything, and yada yada yada. And he's just like, he's in your face and he's laughing because he's got the $5,000 gun with a $3,000 belt and the $2,000 mags. You know, it's like,
and he's a $300 shooter.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm joking.
Yeah, it's just, you know, it's like, just shut up. Just shut up.
No.
I would love to be like, whether like spying on you. And just like, you know, which I would love, that would be like that would be like one of my favorite activities. Like people ask me, "Dean, what would you like to do for us future? Like what are your top things you want to do in the future?" Spying on Rene. So, and just see your daily behavior, interactions.
And here's the thing. There's your OnlyFans name.
I am
spying on Rene.
I'll tell you right now, I am the nicest, most polite person in the world. There are just things that people say and do around me which just set me off. And one of them is going to Home Depot when they're professionals. When I talk to me, it's just like, you know, just leave me alone. And like, it's like literally when I am out with my wife and people will say something to me and she'll just like walk away because she knows like whatever's going to come out of my mouth is not going to be very.
Like that would be such an activity. Like I would just spy on you and I would try to set up where you go to Home Depot. You would go shoot on a range. I'm just going to take videos, do it like, you know, story, you know, an ESPN kind of documentary on Rene.
You could play like a bingo game, right? What's he going to say?
Well, you can take odds on whether or not Rene's truck is going to get hit in the parking lot. You know.
Fuck me, man.
Yeah. Oh my God. And I tell you, I could sell this and people would buy it. I'm telling you.
Do it. We'll make it like a reality show.
Rene gone wild.
Every morning, my truck gets hit by something different.
One show could be, who did Rene say F off to today? And our list is the following, folks. Rene went to a convenience store, didn't have the brand he wanted. F off.
It'd be a shorter list. Who didn't, Rene? Tell him. Fuck off.
Store attendant tries to suggest to Rene that he should be using 10 penny instead of 12 penny nails. Rene says, F off.
I went to the Home Depot not too long ago. I swear to God, and I asked the young girl at the counter, I'm like, "Where do you guys keep the shrimps?" And she goes, "Shrimps?" And I was like, "What?"
He's like, F off.
I'm like, "Did you just say shrimps? You guys sell? You guys sell?" And I swear to God, both my apprentices just kind of like.
Time to exit stage. Wow. This,
Like
I'm
shrimps?
telling you, this is going to be,
Is it beside the cod? Like, what the fuck's wrong with you?
it's going to be an incredible documentary. You know, it's going to be
Rated R.
That's a hard R too.
Oh God! Hey, you know what? May 4th and 5th, man, that's coming up quick.
Yeah.
for
And
you
it's
know
the 40th.
I didn't realize it was going to be the 40th.
Oh, I don't know if they alluded that was the 40th or just the next one coming up.
Yeah.
I think they were just mentioning the next one. I think I could be wrong, but I don't think they were referencing the 40th. Yeah.
I better start like walking or something. Do some chair yoga.
Yeah. You get on the treadmill.
I got a little picture right in front of me, actually. That's where I put all my clothes.
All right, guys, I got a jet, but hey, Kalani, I hope you enjoyed yourself. I'm definitely gonna be in touch for the gun thing. Can't wait.
Awesome. I look forward to it.
Yeah, and Rene, as always, try to just reflect on 355 when you're getting angry. You know what you should do, Rene? When you go in these public places, have 355 there. So when you feel your anger getting up, you can just look at 355 and it just reset you.
I use it as a mantra now. Like 355, 355, 355.
Don't say F off. 55, 55, 55. All right, guys.
All right.
All right,
Hey, gentlemen, good night. Thank you so much.
All right. Bye. Please try not to get arrested in the next upcoming days. Okay.
Yeah, we'll see what happens.
Folks, that wraps up a great one. I had a feeling this was going to be a really good one. Kalani too, man. You're a kid. It's going to be a great episode. I've been looking for a gun guy. All right. Raffle. Okay. Brian Kana has been so wonderful to agree to help me on this. Guys, $5 a ticket. I really would love to get to the goal. And I think we're a few hundred away. So please, by all means, if you can, purchase your tickets. And as always, it's pinned. You go in the comment section, you'll see all the items that have been donated. Ton of lessons, stick bag, DVD, Piper DVD, no less. Okay, I actually got to try to win that. I had to bribe somebody, Brian, who's going to be pulling the tickets. But at any rate, yeah, so of course, you guys will actually be helping out folks over there that are sick and not doing well. Okay, so if you could, by all means, $5 a ticket, pinned in FMA discussion. Who is next? This Saturday, Guru Roger, Lameko. I think it's going to be Guru Roger, Heil, and Stephanie. And I'm going to confirm that in a couple of days. And that. All right, folks. I will thank you for watching, tuning in, commenting. There are a ton of comments here. But at any rate, I will see you guys next time. Don't forget the raffle.